What we do here is go back.
This is Ingram Angle from Washington tonight. Thanks for joining us. Crocodile tears. It's so sad. That's the focus of tonight's angle.
Republicans removed Congresswoman Ilhan Omar from the Foreign Affairs Committee. Another example of House Republicans putting the show ahead of any kind of policy agenda.
A blatant double standard is being applied here. And what is the difference between Rep. Omar and these members? Could it be the way that she looks?
It's a political stunt, and it is a disservice to the American people.
What a hideous miscarriage of justice. A majority power exercising influence over House committee assignments. Wow. And right on cue, squad members tried to outrage one another with their faux outrage. Wow, a striking vocal similarity.
The white supremacy happening is unbelievable. This is just a bunch of racist gaslighting. We all know it. They turn Congress into a place of fear-mongering hate. I am so sorry, has expired. That our country is failing you today through this chamber. You belong in that committee.
My voice will get louder and stronger, and my leadership will be celebrated around the world as it has been.
So utterly disingenuous, and yet so predictable. The party that presided over the weaponization of government agencies from the FBI to the EPA is suddenly crying foul? Then why? Because their committee position was actually put to a vote. How dare they be held accountable for their own toxic words and abysmal record? Well, naturally, their dog-eared scripts about racism and misogyny came in handy.
One of the disgusting legacies after 9/11 has been the targeting and racism against Muslim Americans throughout the United States of America. And this is an extension of that legacy. Consistency, there is nothing consistent with the Republican Party's continued attack except for the racism and incitement of violence against women of color in this body. Don't tell me this is about consistency. Don't tell me that this is about a condemnation of anti-Semitic remarks. This is about targeting women of color.
Now, talk about a double standard. When Republicans lose committee assignments, it's tough luck. When Democrats lose them and are put up to an actual vote, no less, it's Armageddon. But let's be blunt here. Omar lost her position on the Foreign Affairs Committee, not because she's a Muslim or wears a headscarf. She lost it because over the years, she's made a series of anti-Semitic comments. She wasn't treated unfairly. The newly elected House decided that they didn't want someone with her views involved in the oversight of U.S. foreign policy. She's free to serve on other committees, but she should not serve in this particular role, given her radical and anti-Semitic history. Yeah, I know she's made some apologies, but apparently they weren't convincing.
I certainly did not or was not aware that the word hypnotize was a trope. I wasn't aware of the fact that there are tropes about Jews and money. That has been a very enlightening part of this journey.
Oh, this journey. If Democrats want to make this an issue, well, they could try. But the notion that she was discriminated against because of her race or her religious background is laughable. We don't need to run through her old clips. We're all sick of hearing her and hearing them. The notion that the party of Adam Schiff and Nancy Pelosi have any leg to stand on to complain about any of this is absurd. They packed the Jan 6 committee with toadies and two Trump-hating Republicans, and they kicked Marjorie Taylor Greene off all committees because they didn't like her views. At the time, we warned Democrats they were setting a precedent that would come back to bite them, but they didn't listen. The GOP, though, was not doing this in a tit-for-tat moment, kicking Schiff and Swalwell off their Intel committee or Omar off her Foreign Affairs Committee. No, Republicans, by doing that, were being pragmatic.
You know Swalwell should not serve on the Intel. I'd love to take a show of hands here. How many believe, if you're a member of Congress and the FBI says nothing, but the moment your leadership appoints you to the Intel Committee, the FBI comes knocking on the leadership's door and says, we have a problem. This person has a relationship with a Chinese spy. How many believe that that person should stay on Intel? Now, the chairman of the Intel Committee, Adam Schiff, I actually believe I helped him. Because what he did to the Intel Committee, he used that position as chairman, knowing classified information that others didn't, and he conveyed to the American public something that was not true to try to confuse them on a number of times.
Bingo. I got to tell you, McCarthy has deftly handled this so far. Well, the press, of course, came at him, teeth bared today. He hit back.
Tit for tat retribution that your new majority is taking against a Democratic member of the House. Is this the message you want to send to voters?
No, and that's the clear part, how it's not tit for tat. So the Democrats in the last Congress removed Republican members from all committees. They even judged one Republican member not based upon what she had said as a member of Congress, but what she said prior to ever getting here. This is nothing like the last Congress where you never had an open rule. So I've had Democrats coming up to me telling me we're running it much better, especially the time allotment.
Now, lost in all the recent praise for Nancy Pelosi as a historic, brilliant speaker is the following. She made a huge mistake by giving these fringe fools those assignments on committees in the first place. Omar never should have been on her committee, but Pelosi moved to placate the squad on that and so many other issues, like putting metal detectors in Congress, the fences around the Capitol, radical climate policies. And in the end, that hard turn to the left was a major reason why they lost the majority. So the Democrats find themselves in an unenviable position, not because of systemic racism or political revenge. They're in this mess because they abused their position. They acted irresponsibly and vengefully, and they lied over and over again, including about January 6th. 2 nights ago, we heard this from NBC News.
The January 6th committee's final report was more than 800 pages, but some material did not make the cut, including much of its findings on the failures of federal law enforcement leading up to the attack.
The chief investigator of the January 6th committee says the government could have prevented it.
Law enforcement had a very direct role in contributing to really the failures, the security failures that led to the violence.
The law enforcement had a direct role, security failures that led to the violence? Excuse me? I love how kind of NBC acts like, okay, this is a one-day story. Nothing more to talk about. Pelosi and Schumer could have stopped January 6th before it started. They ignored all the warnings. Why? We're ever going to get that question answered? Now, if a real Republican was actually on that January 6th committee, we would have heard about this months ago. But that's how the Democrats ran the House. Zero transparency, aided by a media that not only refused to hold them accountable, but actively ran cover for them. Well, those days are over. So buckle up, libs, and dry those crocodile tears. Republicans have 2 years' worth of questions that need answering. This is our House now, and that's the angle. Joining me now is Ned Ryan, CEO of American Majority, Charlie Hurt, Washington Times opinion editor, Fox News contributor. Ned, committee fights aside, there is a real battle brewing about oversight that's going to really test them, is it not, going forward? I'm talking about testing the Republican leadership. Explain it.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, I applaud them kicking Omar and Schiff and Swalwell off these committees, but that's small ball. The real game and the real test of Republican grit is going to be when the FBI and these other department and agencies resist and thumb their noses at legitimate oversight requests. And then what are House Republicans going to do in response? I know it wouldn't pass the Senate, but are they going to cut funding for these departments and agencies? Are they going to hold these agency heads in contempt? Are they really going to try and force these agencies to heel? And this is the real thing, Laura, in D.C. A lot of this stuff is white noise. The real fight, is who decides who governs in D.C. Is it our elected officials, the representatives of the people, or is it these unelected bureaucrats who think they decide. And Republicans need to fight this fight because we, for too long, have allowed this leviathan of the administrative state, unconstitutional administrative state, to grow so powerful with these unelected bureaucrats that they think they can do whatever they want and are not accountable to the representatives of the people. And Republicans need to start fighting this and saying, we're going to demand oversight. We're the ones who govern. And I think they need to start the drumbeat now, 2 years ahead of 2024.
Absolutely.
Of defund and dismantle, so when we get power back, we can address this and devolve the administrative state.
Yeah, impeaching Mayorkas, I don't really know what that gets them. They're just going to Biden will just install another Mayorkas. It's like whack-a-mole. That does nothing. Defund these agencies when they're not doing what they're supposed to do or they're hurting America. Just like, okay, you don't get any money then. Charlie, but you actually disagree. You're siding with Ilhan Omar and apparently shedding some crocodile tears of your own over the Foreign Affairs Committee. Charlie, explain this.
Yes, I am. It's almost indefensible. Although I have to say the display by the squad on the House floor made it all worth it. But I will say, I get a little queasy about this business of tossing people off of committees under our current structure based on things they've said or they've done. I didn't like it when they did it to Marjorie Taylor Greene, and I don't particularly think it's necessary to do with Ilhan Omar. That said, I think that the situation with Schiff and Swalwell is different because they're a national security risk. We know that now, and they should be removed from that committee. But my concern with Ilhan Omar, we know that she's an anti-Semite. More importantly, she's anti-American. And what I wish Republicans would do would be to go to Minneapolis and throw her out of office. I don't just want her off of the Foreign Relations Committee. I want her out of Congress. Unfortunately, Republicans fail to go and make that argument. But as is, because she gets elected, she represents 750,000 Americans, and we have to deal with that. But hopefully next time they'll go after it at home.
Yeah, we went to Minneapolis, and we couldn't believe what we saw. I mean, it's a disaster there, and she's rarely in the district. People's like, we never see her here. Ned, AOC ran over to CNN tonight to deliver what we've come to expect about these committee expulsions.
In the case of all three of these expulsions, there is either political revenge or there is the absolute agenda of racist, misogynist, and xenophobic targeting. And those three points, in addition to the political revenge, constitute modern Trumpian politics.
RMX, Ned. I think she's going to have her own RMX, racist, misogynist, xenophobia. If the word racism didn't exist, what would they talk about? Because everything's racist. Everything that the Republicans do is racist to them.
Because they have no logical arguments and policy to make arguments on behalf of themselves. But I mean, these are legitimate reasons that Republicans have removed Schiff and Swalwell, as Charlie pointed out from Intel. And I would argue, I disagree with Charlie on this. We have a vile anti-Semite. Her district might have liked her. It doesn't mean that she actually has to be on the Foreign Affairs Committee. But at some point, if you don't want none, don't start none. Republicans didn't start this. Democrats did. And if they don't like the game, they don't like these rules, they shouldn't have made these rules. And I actually appreciate it. I appreciate Kevin McCarthy going right back at them and punching back. I'd like to see more of it among Republicans.
Charlie, but the points that we need to make clear tonight are legislative accomplishments, banning TikTok, removing permanent normal trade relations status for China, defunding these agencies that are working against the will of the people, whether the DEI nonsense at Defense, the nonsense at DHS, EPA, whatever it has to be. Don't you think they have to start ticking off things at the House that they pass and put the Senate on notice?
Absolutely, and they need to start with the spending process. In the spending, and the whole reason that spending bills, taxation bills all begin in the House is because it's of a paramount importance that the lawmakers closest to the people do the grave work of spending your money and taking your money. And Republicans need to start that fight and be ready to carry that fight all the way to the end. And it must include defunding these agencies that are out of control and cutting across the board, cutting spending 10% a year, like every American family, like every business has already had to do.
Absolutely right, gentlemen. Thank you.
Is it just me staring in the mirror on the wall? All I can see is nothing more of nothing at all. Behind that grinning face, you know what I've discovered? Avoid an empty space. Is it for real? The voice that I keep hearing loud and clear. Is it just me taunting me with things I don't wanna hear? And it goes on and on. It's playing special for me. A never-ending song.
Have the capacity now, as we've had in the past, to do whatever needs to be done to preserve this last and greatest bastion of freedom. In this present crisis, government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem.